We're losing him. Somebody get that blood in now." The shout cut through the hallway like a gunshot. Metal doors slammed open. Nurses rushed past, the wheels of a gurney squealing against the tile. Somewhere down the corridor, a monitor screamed a flatline. Anna Fred froze beside her cleaning cart, her gloved hands trembling, the faint smell of bleach rising in the air. Moments ago, she'd been mopping up coffee from a waiting room floor. Now, the world had narrowed to chaos, and the sharp echo of orders barked over the hospital intercom. Code red. O-negative blood needed immediately. Pediatric trauma. All compatible staff report to the donation center. Her heart skipped. O-negative. The rarest kind. Her kind. Welcome back. Let me know in the comments section how excited you are to continue the story. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share. Let's make the video to go viral. Let's continue. She glanced toward the ER doors, where frantic footsteps thundered. A doctor sprinted past, clutching an 4-bag, shouting for plasma. Another nurse held open the operating room door, just long enough for Anna to glimpse a small, limp arm sliding off the edge of a stretcher, tiny fingers, pale and still. The smell of antiseptic burned her nose. Her mind flashed to her own daughter, Layla, 16, healthy, waiting somewhere upstairs in the pediatric ward where she volunteered. Then, through the commotion, a man burst through the sliding doors, his expensive gray suit wrinkled, his tie hanging loose like a noose around his neck. Security tried to hold him back, but he shoved through. His voice cracked as he yelled a name that made even the nurses pause. "My boy, let me see him." "Harry." Anna blinked, the sound of that voice tugging at something sharp and familiar. She knew that tone, heard earlier that morning, colder, crueler. Charles William, the billionaire CEO who'd mocked her for missing a streak on his conference table. The man who hadn't looked at her like she was human. Now he was just another parent begging for mercy in a hallway that smelled like fear. For a heartbeat, their eyes met, his filled with panic, hers wide with disbelief. Then the doors to surgery slammed shut, swallowing his voice. Anna stood alone in the fluorescent silence, heart pounding, realization sinking in. Someone's child was dying, and she might be the only one who could save him. 6 hours earlier, the first alarm buzzed at 5:15 a.m. inside a narrow 2-bedroom apartment on Atlanta's south side. The air smelled faintly of coffee grounds and lemon cleaner. Anna Fred pushed herself out of bed before the second alarm could go off, her knees aching from yesterday's shift. She moved quietly so she wouldn't wake her daughter, Layla, who had an early volunteer day at the hospital. By 5:40, the kitchen light flicked on. Anna stood in her worn uniform, hair tied back, sipping coffee from a chipped mug that read faith over fear. Outside, the city was still half asleep, delivery trucks humming down Pryor Street, a siren wailing somewhere in the distance. She packed Layla's lunch, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Keep your head high today, baby." By 6 a.m., Anna was on the bus to Midtown, watching dawn smear pink over the skyline. She didn't complain. She'd always believed honest work, no matter how small, had dignity. Across town, in a glass-walled penthouse overlooking Peachtree Street, Charles Williams started his morning differently. Espresso machine hissing, Bluetooth in his ear, 3 screens glowing with stock updates. His driver waited downstairs. His assistant was already apologizing to investors on a call. William Tech's newest product launch was delayed, and the board wanted answers. Charles didn't like failure or excuses. By 6:45, Anna pushed her cleaning cart through the executive floor of William Tech Enterprises. The office was silent except for the hum of air conditioning and the squeak of her mop. She hummed softly, polishing the massive glass conference table until it gleamed. Then the elevator chimed. Charles stepped out mid-call, jaw tight. "No, tell them if they can't deliver, I'll find someone who can." He hung up hard and turned toward her. "You missed a spot," he said flatly. "I'm sorry, sir. I was just about to—" He cut her off. "Do you people even know how to take pride in your work? This place looks like a bus station." The room went still. A few executives exchanged uneasy glances. Anna just nodded, eyes lowered. "Won't happen again, sir," she whispered. He didn't reply, just walked away, already dialing another number. But his words stayed with her long after the floor clean. Evening settled over Atlanta like a slow sigh. The city glowed in amber and noise, headlights, laughter, and the soft hum of traffic bleeding through cracked apartment windows on the south side. In apartment 3B, Anna Fred sat at a small kitchen table covered with bills, a half-finished plate of rice, and her daughter's open notebook. Layla was bent over her homework, humming a tune under her breath, a song from her church choir. "Mom, do you think I can still go on that trip next month?" Layla asked, glancing up. Mrs. Hayes said they need the payment by Friday. Anna hesitated, eyes flicking toward the stack of envelopes marked final notice. "We'll figure out, baby," she said softly. "The Lord always makes a way." She smiled, though her fingers trembled slightly as she folded another bill closed. Later that night, after Layla fell asleep, Anna stood at the window watching the MARTA train glide by in the distance. She touched the photo frame on the counter. Her late husband, Marcus, grinning beside an old Chevy he'd rebuilt before the accident. He'd been gone 6 years, but his presence still lived in the steady way she faced every day. "Still holding us together," she whispered, half smiling. Across town, high above Peachtree Street, Charles Williams sat in a dining room meant for 10, but filled by 1. The city lights spread beneath his penthouse like a digital map. Every window below someone else's life, someone else's noise. His dinner sat untouched beside a half-empty glass of scotch. He'd told himself for years that sacrifice was the price of success. But lately, the silence in that apartment had begun to sound like punishment. His wife, Evelyn, had left 2 years after the company went public. "You don't love people, Charles," she'd said. "You love control." Now, the only laughter that filled the place came from Harry, his 10-year-old son. Bright, curious, and fearless, despite the asthma that kept him tethered to inhalers and careful routines. Robotics kits cluttered his bedroom floor. When Harry wasn't there, the space felt hollow. 2 worlds, one small and cluttered, one vast and sterile, both filled with longing and loneliness. Anna prayed for enough. Charles worked for more. Neither knew their lives were already on a collision course. Thursday afternoons in Atlanta always felt rushed. Traffic thick on Peachtree, delivery vans clogging every intersection, the air sticky with heat and hurry. At 2:55 p.m., Harry William waited outside his private school gate, backpack slung low, sneakers scuffing the pavement. His father's driver was late again. He checked his watch, 3 o'clock. He hated being late for his robotics club, so he started walking. It was only 4 blocks. He knew the route. He'd done it before. Up the street, a delivery truck rattled through a yellow light, horn blaring. The driver tried to beat the signal. A cyclist cut across the lane. Then came the screech, rubber shredding asphalt, metal twisting, shouts breaking the calm, and silence. For a split second, the world just stopped. Then came the sirens. By 3:10 p.m., Charles William was in a board meeting downtown when his phone vibrated. He almost ignored it. Another call from the office, but something made him glance down. St. Matthew's Hospital flashed across the screen. He answered, heart already tightening. "Mr. William? This is Nurse Cortez from St. Matthew's. Your son's been brought in. There's internal bleeding. We're preparing for emergency surgery." Everything after that blurred. The polished conference table, the startled faces of his executives, the sound of his own chair scraping back. He was in his car within seconds, tearing through midtown traffic, red lights be damned. The city outside was just color and noise. By the time he reached the hospital, reporters were already clustered near the entrance, camera lights flashing like lightning. "Mr. William, can you comment?" He shoved past them. "Where's my son?" Inside, the ER smelled of antiseptic and chaos. A doctor met him near the trauma bay, voice low but urgent. "Your boy's lost a lot of blood. We're trying to stabilize him, but he needs O negative immediately. It's rare. We're checking the registry now." Charles's hand shook. "Take mine. Test me." The doctor shook his head. "You're not a match." Downstairs, Anna Fred was finishing her shift in the hospital's administrative wing, waiting for Layla to wrap up her volunteer hours. The loudspeaker crackled overhead. Code red. O-negative blood needed immediately. Pediatric trauma. All compatible staff report to the donation center. Anna froze. O-negative. Her kind. She didn't hesitate. She set down her mop, pulled off her gloves, and whispered, "Lord, guide me," before walking toward the stairs. The fluorescent lights of the donation room flickered softly, reflecting off the steel trays and rows of Red Cross bags. Anna moved with quiet purpose, her hands trembling only slightly as she signed the consent form. The nurse looked at her with concern. "2 full units is a lot, ma'am. You could feel faint." Anna met her eyes and gave a small nod. "Then I'll sit still," she said. "Just make sure the child gets what he needs." They settled her into the reclined chair, a blanket across her lap, tubing taped gently to her arm. The first rush of warmth left her lightheaded, but she focused on steady breathing, whispering prayers between slow exhales. She didn't know whose life she was saving, only that a child somewhere upstairs was fighting for another breath. Above her, in the surgical wing, Charles William paced the gleaming hallway outside the operating room. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Machines hummed beyond the doors, the faint rhythm of his son's monitor punctuating every second. When the surgeon finally stepped out, Charles nearly stumbled forward. "We found a match," the doctor said. "Your son's being prepped for transfusion." "She's giving now." Charles gripped the man's arm. "Who is she? Tell me her name." The doctor checked the chart. "Anna Fred. Janitorial services, I believe, one of your staff." The name hit like a punch to the gut. For a moment, Charles couldn't breathe. The woman he'd mocked that morning, the one he'd made small in front of his own people, was the reason his son might live. Downstairs, Anna's world narrowed to the sound of her pulse and the slow drip of the collection bag. Her vision blurred around the edges, but she kept still, whispering, "Just a little more, Lord." Minutes later, the nurse squeezed her hand. "That's enough, honey. You did it." Anna smiled weakly, her skin pale, but her heart full. Somewhere above her, a boy she'd never met was being given back to his father. And for the first time in years, Charles William understood the true cost and grace of mercy. Through the narrow glass window, Charles saw her, Anna Fred, sitting quietly in the donor recovery chair. A thin blanket covered her knees, a paper cup of orange juice trembling faintly in her hand. Her skin looked pale against the white hospital light, her head tilted back as she fought exhaustion. He froze. The sight of her, this woman he had belittled in front of others, sent a sharp ache through his chest. Every word he'd said that morning replayed in his mind like an accusation. After a long moment, he pushed open the door. The soft hiss of it closing behind him seemed too loud. "Ms. Fred," he said, his voice catching. She looked up, surprise flickering across her tired face. "Mr. William." He took a hesitant step closer, hands trembling slightly. I came to thank you. There aren't words for what you've done. You saved my boy's life." Anna studied him quietly, then gave a small, weary smile. "Your son needed blood. I had it. That's all there is to it." He shook his head, struggling. "No, it's not that simple. You gave and you didn't have to. After how I treated you." His voice broke. "I was wrong. So wrong." Her gaze softened, though her voice stayed gentle and steady. "We all fall short sometimes, sir. What matters is what we do next." He swallowed hard, his throat tight. "Please, let me do something. Anything to repay you." Anna looked down at her cup, turning it slowly in her hands before meeting his eyes again. "Just be kind to the next person you look down on," she said. "That'll be enough." Silence filled the room. For the first time in his life, Charles William, the man who measured worth in numbers, understood the weight of grace. And in that small, sterile room, it wasn't the billionaire who stood tall, but the woman who had given everything without asking for a thing in return. Harry made it through the night. The doctors called it a miracle, but Charles knew better. It was mercy flowing through the veins of a woman he'd once dismissed. He stayed by his son's bedside, watching the steady rise and fall of Harry's chest, listening to the rhythmic hum of the monitors. The boy's small hand felt warm again, alive. Every time Charles closed his eyes, he saw Anna's face, drained, quiet, resolute, as she whispered prayers in the donor chair. When morning light crept through the blinds, Charles bowed his head for the first time in years. "Thank you," he whispered. Days later, when Harry was strong enough to smile again, Charles finally returned to the office. The building that once felt like his kingdom suddenly seemed colder, its polished marble floors echoing with things he'd ignored. He passed a cluster of executives outside the conference room, people who'd laughed along with him that morning when he'd mocked Anna. Now their voices were low, uneasy. "Did you hear? That janitor saved his kid's life." "Yeah." I'll never forget the look on his face when the doctor told him. Charles didn't stop. He just walked his chest tight with shame. In the break room, he noticed a folded card left on the counter. A get-well card for Harry, signed by the cleaning crew. Simple notes in neat handwriting. "Praying for your boy. God bless you and your family. From a night shift. Hope he heals fast." He ran a hand over the signatures, realizing he didn't know half their names. The people who kept his empire spotless had been invisible to him. Until now. That afternoon, he called Human Resources. "I need Anna Fred's file," he said quietly. A few minutes later, the details stared back at him. Widowed, 2 jobs, 1 daughter in high school. 15 years of service. Never late. Never complained. Charles sat back in his chair, the weight of it all pressing down. For years, he measured success by numbers on a screen. But Anna's quiet strength had rewritten his definition of worth. He knew then what he had to do. Make things right, not with words, but with action. The narrow hallway of the apartment complex smelled faintly of laundry detergent and fried onions. It was a modest building on Atlanta's south side. Peeling paint, cracked steps, but when Charles reached the door marked 2B, he hesitated. This wasn't a boardroom. There was no script, no press release, no strategy. Just a man carrying the weight of gratitude he could never repay. He knocked softly. Anna opened the door, surprise flickering across her face. "Mr. William?" Behind her, a teenage girl peeked from the kitchen. Layla, tall and bright-eyed, holding a stack of schoolbooks. Charles cleared his throat, suddenly unsure of himself. "I'm sorry for coming unannounced," he said. "I wanted to thank you, in person." Anna folded her arms lightly, guarded but polite. "You already did that at the hospital." He nodded. "Not like this." He handed her an envelope. "It's an official offer. Director of Facilities. Full benefits, paid tuition for your daughter." And he hesitated. "I'd like your help building an employee support program. For folks who do what you do, quietly, faithfully, without recognition." Anna looked down at the envelope, then back at him. "Mr. William, I don't need pity." "This isn't pity," he said quickly. "It's respect. You show me what leadership really looks like." She studied his face a long moment, searching for the truth in it. Finally, she nodded once. "All right," she said, "but this isn't charity. It's dignity. You keep it real, and I'll help." Weeks later, the William Tech lobby was filled with cameras and reporters. The same marble floors where Anna had once been humiliated now gleamed beneath banners reading the Anna Fred Foundation, empowering the people who keep us strong. Charles stood at the podium, his voice steady. "A woman I once overlooked taught me the meaning of grace. This program is her vision." He turned to Anna, who stood beside him in her neatly pressed suit. When they handed her the microphone, she smiled faintly and said simply, "Sometimes the people you overlook are the ones holding you up." The room erupted in applause. And for the first time, Charles William felt truly proud, because this time, the spotlight wasn't his. It took Charles 3 days to gather the courage to go. The GPS led him to a quiet apartment complex on the south side of Atlanta, where paint peeled from the railings and kids rode bikes through puddles in the parking lot. He checked the address twice before climbing the narrow stairs to 2B. When Anna opened the door, she looked more surprised than anything. "Mr. William?" He offered a small, uneasy smile. "May I come in for a minute?" She hesitated, then stepped aside. The living room was tidy but worn. Family photos on the wall, a Bible open on the coffee table. From the kitchen, Layla peeked in, a dish towel in hand. Charles nodded to her. "You must be Layla. Your mother talks about you." Anna arched an eyebrow. "Does she?" He chuckled softly, then turned serious. pulling an envelope from his coat. "This isn't just a thank you," he said. "It's an offer. Director of Facilities. Full benefits. Paid tuition for Layla. And something more. I'd like your help creating an employee support program. For folks like you who keep this company running." Anna crossed her arms, cautious. "Mr. William, I don't need handouts." "It's not a handout," he said quickly. "You earned this." "You opened my eyes." She studied him a long moment, searching for any trace of pride or guilt. Finally, she spoke quietly. "All right, but this isn't charity, Mr. William. It's dignity. You keep it real, and I'll help." He nodded. "Deal." A month later, the William Tech lobby was filled with cameras and flowers. The same marble floor where Anna once scrubbed and endured humiliation now gleamed beneath a new banner. The Anna Fred Foundation, for the people who keep us standing. Charles stood at the podium, voice steady but full of emotion. This foundation began with one woman's courage and grace. She reminded me that true leadership starts with humility. He turned to Anna. She stepped forward, simple and composed, and said into the microphone, "Sometimes the people you overlook are the ones holding you up." The applause that followed wasn't just polite, it was reverent. Stories like Anna's remind us that grace and courage don't always wear a suit or stand behind a podium. They're found in the quiet, unseen hands that keep the world turning. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so that the video will go viral. Thank you.